بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم والعاقبة للمتقين أما بعد. Respected brothers and sisters, today we had completed the 12th juz, and in this juz we had covered Surah Hud, and we had also covered a large portion of Surah Yusuf. Surah Hud is something I would recommend all of us read, because basically in this surah you have multiple prophets alayhimu salatu wasalam spoken about how they approached their community, the initial invitation, what did it look like, what was the response, what was the long-term interaction, and finally what was the result. And basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes us through the story of Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam and Hud alayhi salatu wasalam, Salih alayhi salatu wasalam, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, Lut alayhi salatu wasalam, Shu'aib alayhi salatu wasalam, and Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. All in this sequence. One by one, he's telling us about their stories. And you can see that there's pretty much the same story being played out. Right? There's just minor variances here and there, but it's pretty much the same theme where the prophets ﷺ come to the community. The vast majority of the community reject the prophets ﷺ. A portion of the community actively opposes the Anbiya ﷺ, which has a lot of influence in the community. And as a result, when tremendous effort has been made and that effort has gone in vain against those people who are being called, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately finishes off that community and replaces them with another community. And this is being told to us for a reason. Here we are being told clearly that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sunnah, His practices and His traditions, they never change. He will always give a community a period of time, and that period of time in which they can reflect, in which they can reform themselves, in which they can rectify their ways. That period of time is only known to Allah. He may give a few years to some people, He may give a few decades to some people, He may give a few centuries. But ultimately there is an end. And once that end is reached, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's orders, they materialize. So the one thing that we need to understand from all of this is that at no point should we feel immune that just because I'm living here in Canada, and I'm living in one of the most progressive places in the world, nothing will ever happen to us. Every single person who has faced adverse conditions, they all thought the same thing. Nothing is going to ever happen to us. But when it happened so fast, they just didn't know what happened. Okay, so this is the one thing that we should never feel immune over and feel this sense of security. And so long as we're trying to do the right thing, inshallah, so long as we're engaged in reforming ourselves, our families, and our communities, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will treat us well. And it's only the moment we abandon our duties that things are not going to look very pleasant and bright going forward. So these stories and these incidents, I will encourage every single one of us to go and read up on them. I'm telling you, some of these incidents are better. It's better than watching some type of a show, something like, what's that Thrones stuff that everyone's watching nowadays? Okay, I don't know, I can't remember the name. But it's better than that stuff. And then we come across the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And this story, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it's ahsan al-qasas, it's the best of stories, really. There's, every single one of us can connect with this story. Not that we can't connect with others, but there's something really special about this story. Remember, we're talking about the great-grandson of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay, and normally what happens is, there's a couple of things that we face in life. One is family problems, and the other is that we sometimes feel a sense of rejection. We feel that no one likes me, life is so cruel. And many a times we feel like this because we have this tremendous sense of entitlement in this type of community. Tremendous sense of entitlement. And when we don't see things materializing the way we would like, then all of a sudden we feel that the whole world has just come to an end and life is just not worth living anymore. And we start slashing our wrists and whatnot and doing all these crazy things. My dear respected brothers, if there's anyone that's had some major family problems and who has felt repeated rejection, that's Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And think about this. Let's just go through his story very briefly. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he sees a dream, and that dream is really signifying that he's going to be, you can say, the star of the family. A person who's going to really shine out of the entire family, where he's seeing what is reflected as his parents and his brothers all bowing down to him. He tells his story to his father, Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam. Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, he's happy for his son, but at the same time he's also being protective, and he's saying that don't tell your brothers about this. But the brothers, the 11 of them, they start noticing that the father is giving somewhat more attention, or is giving special attention to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And what happens is jealousy, or something of that nature, it starts building within their hearts. And then as a result they decide, the best solution to this problem is just get rid of this problem. And all of a sudden there's a conspiracy. Okay, let's get rid of him by either killing him, which ultimately is rejected as an idea, and what was settled on is let's just throw him into a well. Now think about this. These are his own brothers. Okay, we're talking about having family problems. Here you have an innocent child whose brothers are conspiring to kill him. Literally. It's not like, main tujhe maar dalunga. It's not that stuff. This is not like a Bollywood movie, right? This is the real thing. This is the real deal here. They really want to kill him. Okay, so this in itself, think about this. When we go through some family problems, someone said something to me, इसने मेरे साथ बड़ी बदतमीजी की, कभी उसको माफ नहीं करूँगा, अरे ये मेरे जनाजे की पर भी ना आए. Okay, we get so over emotional. It's totally hilarious, man. But here you have Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, his brothers want to kill him. Okay, and they eventually execute their plot. Okay, they come up with this crazy plan of going for a little picnic and throw him down a well, come back crying to their father, saying that he was eaten up by a wolf. The father is not a fool. Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, he automatically knew that they've done something with Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. He couldn't pinpoint exactly what has happened, but look at the way the father is now dealing with this. He said, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. Okay, sabri sabrun jamil. The way I'm going to deal with this is deal with this in a beautiful patience. These are his sons. He knows what's going on. I mean, he's got an idea that they have now played foul with his beloved son Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, but he's not cutting them off. Right? He's not saying, get out of my house. He's saying, listen, I'm just going to tolerate this with patience. And this, you can see a very, when the problems are totally out of the window, they're totally beyond the ceiling, still you see a tremendous amount of calm, a tremendous amount of control in that domestic environment. If we think that our family problems are totally out of control, look at this incident. I don't think any one of us has come close to an incident like this. Okay, and then after that, let's look at Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. I mean, he's thrown down a well. Okay, and it's not like jumping into a swimming pool. Okay, he's been thrown down a well. He's even been stoned to a certain degree. Okay, according to some Tafseer, the brothers start throwing stones down to try and hurt him. Eventually, he's taken out by a group of people, a caravan that's on its way to Egypt. He's sold to them. The brothers quickly rush. They sell him off for a very cheap price. So what's happened? Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he's been rejected by his brothers. He's almost been killed by his brothers. Now he is being sold into slavery by his brothers. Okay? And if that's not ultimate rejection, I don't know what that is. So imagine the amount of resentment we would have if we had faced this. We would remember this for the rest of our lives. But Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is a different breed of person. Okay, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is now sold as a slave to one of the ministers of food and agriculture in Egypt. Now he's starting a brand new life as a slave. Okay, and remember, to go from being one of the most noble people on the planet. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is the great-grandson of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. That family is the most noble family on the planet at that time. There's just no one more noble than them. So to go from there, from nobility into slavery, that's a big blow to your morale. That's a huge blow to your morale. Now he's beginning life all together, all over again. And he's watching the minister, the way he works, and he's learning from this. Only to all of a sudden fall victim to another ploy, or another plot. And that's when the wife of the minister wants to seduce Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this seduction. But then all of a sudden, he is now being accused for attempted rape. Okay, I mean, the guy is totally innocent. He didn't do anything, but now he's being accused for attempted rape. A little investigation is carried out. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is proven innocent, but everything is kept hush-hush. But as you know, like the tabloids here, TMZ, as soon as they find out, that's it. That's on the headlines now. Okay, now they're going to tell the whole world about what's just happened. So you had their own TMZ down there. Okay, they're just all of a sudden this gossip has begun that this crazy incident just took place in the minister's house. And then the word of this, it reaches the minister's wife. The wife then wants to prove them, she is going to ultimately confess in front of everyone, but she wants to show what had totally overwhelmed her, what had just got her so emotional that she had succumbed to her emotions and taken these steps. And she presents Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam to these women who are so astonished that they cut their hands. And then after that, she openly admits, right, that I tried to seduce him, and if he doesn't do what I want, then he's going to go in jail. She openly admits it. Now Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is being pressured not just by one woman, by a group of women who are now also tempting him, hey, just carry on with it, don't worry about it. And what does Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam do? He's saying, listen, if they want to throw me in jail, Rabbi as-sijn wa habbu ilayya mimma yad'unani ilay. I'd rather go in jail than do what they're telling me to do, which is compromise my chastity and compromise my morality. Okay, and this is the one thing about the tarbiyah of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, the discipline. He hasn't spent many years with his father. He was relatively a child speaking, but that tarbiyah, that discipline was so well done that he's not ready to compromise his iman or his a'mal in any shape or form. And that's the type of discipline we want to give our children. And believe you me, if we're just going to stick him in front of Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse and all those guys, they're never going to get that tarbiyah. Okay? So what happens is Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he's going into jail now. He's thrown into jail. Now think about this. He went from being rejected by his brothers, sold to slavery, seduced almost, and now there's even more pressure in compromising his chastity, and then he's thrown in jail. I mean, if life doesn't get any more miserable than this, then I don't know what happens. And we think we have it bad just because, one of us kids, we just didn't get our Xbox 360. Okay, and life is so bad. Or my dad didn't get me those Nike Air Jordans. I mean, that's like the worst thing on the planet. Like, you didn't get me Nike Air Jordans? And there's children out there that don't even have feet anymore because they're in war zones. Okay? So here you have Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. He's now thrown into the dungeons. And this is not like, the medieval dungeons that we see in these castles. This is worse than that. Despite going through all these adverse conditions, you do not find Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam even turning to Allah and saying, God, are you really there? I mean, is this what religion is all about? I believed in this God and this is what happens to me? Sometimes we get so emotional that we start complaining to Allah about Allah. Okay, and these words of kufr start coming onto our mouths. And look at Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Despite going through adverse conditions one after the other, he's now with some inmates. They have a dream. They go to him. They think, well, this person can interpret the dream. He looks like a good person. They must have had some prior interactions with him. And they also declare that, inna naraka min al-muhsinin. We consider you to be a good person. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, look at this. This is like, for me personally, this really melts my heart. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, at that point, these people have come to him. He could start talking about his life and the misery that he's going through. But what does he do instead? He says, I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity. And says, before your food even comes, I'll tell you your dream's interpretation, but let me tell you something else on top of that. And instead of complaining about Allah, he's inviting them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what you call a true believer. Right? He ultimately tells them that, listen, we don't follow the regular methodology of shirk and so forth. We're from this family and this is what we follow. We believe in one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And think about it, what's better, multiple gods or one mighty God? Okay, and these names that you're coming up with, they're only man-made names. So he gives them a full-out invitation to Islam. And that's the level we want to reach. That it doesn't matter how rough it gets in life, we don't turn our backs to Allah. And you'd think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will end the test here. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, at this time, now he's got some hopes. I'm going to finally get out of this pit. I'm going to get out of this dungeon. And he tells the person who is going to now turn into a butler going forward, that just make mention of me by your master. That guy goes, and he totally forgets about Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam says he stays for another, what Allah says, bid'a sinin, which is anywhere between 3 to 9 years. He's not even charged for anything. He's just being thrown inside there. Okay? So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is now staying an additional number of years, not days, years, in jail. And he's still not complaining about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But look at this. The harder a person lives it here with patience, that will pay off. In this world and in the hereafter. Allah will reward in both places, not just the hereafter. In this world as well. And Allah now creates a condition where Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam gets out just by giving an interpretation of a dream to the king, who sees a very strange dream. He gives him an interpretation, which is it's indicative of a 7-year drought that's coming. He gives him a game plan as well. This is the way that you want to go about dealing with the first 7 years of prosperity, followed by the 7 years of drought. This is the way you need to plan for it. He gives him a full-out plan. The king is so impressed by this, he wants Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam released immediately, but Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is reluctant. Not yet. I want my innocence to be publicly declared. Okay, and he gets it declared by getting those women to testify that that woman who tried to seduce me, she had actually confessed that she was in the wrong. And then that woman automatically comes out and automatically confesses in front of everyone that he is totally innocent. And how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam after all of this adversity? Inshallah, we'll cover that tomorrow. May Allah give us all ability to understand and practice upon what has been said. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
More to hear part 2.
أحسنت يا شيخ.